Well, let me make my position on this clear. And I want to start by saying that what I say in this interview, which you've invited me to attend, is in my personal capacity. It's drawing on more than 50 years of engagement with Caribbean affairs and a lifelong commitment to the cause of regional integration. I do not speak on behalf of any government or institution. Now, recent developments concerning the future tenure of Dr. Carla Barnett as Secretary General of CARICOM have brought into focus an issue that goes beyond any individual. It touches the essential requirement of cohesion and mutual confidence among the heads of government who guide the community. It is now evident that at least one head of government of a significant founding member state of CARICOM, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, does not support a continuation of Dr. Barnett's tenure. That reality, in my view, raises a serious question about the practical effectiveness of the office going forward. The Office of Secretary General depends not only on formal authority, but on the full confidence and cooperation of all member governments. Where that confidence is materially in doubt, the capacity of the office to function effectively is inevitably diminished. In those circumstances, and speaking solely for myself, as one who has toiled in the vineyard of Caribbean integration for 50 years, I would consider it untenable to continue in the role in the face of such opposition, particularly from a member state whose engagement is central to the work of the community, were I the Secretary General of CARICOM. For that reason, if I were in Dr. Barnett's position, I would withdraw from consideration for a further term. This is not a judgment on her service, incidentally, which has been carried out with professionalism and dedication. Rather, it is a recognition of a larger principle, and that is, no individual, however capable, should become the point around which diversion among member states coalesces. At a time of considerable global uncertainty, when small states such as ours must rely more than ever on unity, coherence, and collective strength, it is essential, in my view, that the leadership of the community facilitates rather than complicates that unity. It is in that spirit, and with respect for both the office and the regional project, to which many of us have devoted our lives, that I offer the view that Dr. Barnett ought to withdraw from consideration for a further term, given the significant opposition of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who is an important figure amongst the heads of government, and the importance of Trinidad and Tobago itself. I can't hear you.
Sir Ronald, thank you so much for explaining the larger principle behind that, which you said no individual should be the reason for, in my words, regional disunity. But let's just say the vote did take place as outlined according to the articles of CARICOM, then you don't necessarily have to have the support of all member states or all heads of government. You just need to have the majority. And
well,
even
I don't.
You can go ahead.
Frankly, we're beyond that discussion. This is no longer a question of what happened in Nevis and or what did not happen. What is relevant to us now is the situation we have before us, which is that a leading Prime Minister of CARICOM and of an important country that makes a 20% contribution to the Secretariat is not happy with the current Secretary General and does not wish that person to continue in office. If I were the Secretary General, I would not stay in the way of regional integration. I would want to do all that I can to promote the cohesion of member states, and that is the point that is at issue now. What happened is neither here nor there, and raking over those coals is not going to make the fire any brighter.
Sir Ronald, I respectfully disagree, and I do so because let's just say Dr. Barnett does not step down. Wouldn't we have to go back into and look at the entire process to see if that process was followed to give Trinidad and Tobago or any other member states that point of legal objection?
No, there's no need for legal objection. This is not a legal argument. We're not at a court of law. It is a political argument. This is a matter between the heads of government at a political level, not a legal argument. If we getting into legalities does not help the situation at all. What we should be moving toward is resolving the problem, not trying to inflame it.
Now, Sir Ronald, let me just go back a little bit. We have clear articles, clear rules. Then we have the chairman of CARICOM, who appears to be, in the words of our Prime Minister, somewhat unbending on that issue. Do you think at this point the issue is not so much just about Dr. Barnett at this point, but about the general chairmanship of CARICOM? Is it in fact patriarchal, as suggested by the Prime Minister? Is it a boys' club? Is it truly representative of all peoples of the region?
Well, to say that it's a boys' club is nonsense, and I don't think the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago made that statement. And if she did, it's regrettable. Because some of the most towering figures in CARICOM throughout its history have been women. Starting with the former Prime Minister of Dominica, the present Prime Minister of Barbados, the former President of Guyana, and Prime Minister Bissessa herself, who is now doing a second round as a Prime Minister and a head of government in the CARICOM caucus. And they've all participated vigorously. Nobody can say that because they were women, they were not allowed the opportunity to speak and to speak freely. They've done that and they've made their mark on the region. So that is not an argument that is tenable in any way.
Case, Sir Ronald, let's just say Dr. Barnett does step down. What sort of precedent will that be creating? Is it that the highest paying member, the highest contributor to CARICOM has more of a say? Is it now a case of money talks?
No, it has nothing to do with that. Even if the member state that contributed the least to CARICOM, but was a full and equal member of the organization, takes an objection to this chief executive officer of the Secretariat, that matter has to be taken into account. And due respect has to be paid to the representative of a country, particularly one that is a founding member, which represents the people of a state. That is the point that is at issue here. It doesn't have to do with their contribution or with the size of the country. Each member state of CARICOM has an equal voice and an equal vote.
Now, just to go back a bit, you did say that our Prime Minister, Carla Barnett, is not pleased with Dr. Barnett as Secretary General. But of course, she doesn't say this. Our Prime Minister, in fact, says that she doesn't agree with the process. And now she has gone a bit further in terms of disputing exactly what happened, who's lying, trying to tarnish everyone's character. Even in Trinidad and Tobago, we're seeing there's a lot of division over the Prime Minister's stance. Some believe that she is now attacking CARICOM.
Well,
but in effect, I was about to ask you, does she have a right? Does she have grounds?
Well, I don't know grounds. I know she certainly has a right to speak her mind, and she has a right to an opinion, and she has a right to voice it. That does not mean everybody has to agree with her. But at this particular point, which is not about the process as far as I am concerned, what it is about is whether or not a CEO of a regional organization can command the support of all of the member states. Can she have dialogue with every single prime minister that is necessary to move the regional integration movement forward? And absent that, then that is the issue with which we have to deal.
Is she playing hardball, holding CARICOM to ransom, refusing to attend meetings, not recognizing Dr. Barnett when her term ends in August, threatening to cut funding?
Well, that is a question for her, not for me. I am not interested in what her motivations are. What I am saying is that we have an impasse in CARICOM right now. And that impasse surrounds the person who's holding the job of Secretary General and that person's ability to command the support of every single Prime Minister and head of government in the caucus.
Now, speaking to you in a pre-interview, I should say, Sir Ronald, you did say that you didn't think that this entire to and fro ought to have been played out in the public domain. Essentially, ideally, what should have happened?
And that is still my view. I believe that megaphone diplomacy never works. It doesn't work in international affairs, in regional affairs. In fact, it doesn't even happen. It doesn't even succeed in national affairs. The best way to resolve difficulties is through dialogue. And dialogue requires a mature approach, a sensible approach, respect for your colleagues, and sitting down and talking about the issues that are before them. And everybody has a right to an opinion. Everybody has a right to express the concerns about which are peculiar to them and which they consider to be important. What we have to do in CARICOM is learn to listen more to one another, to respect more the views of each other, recognize that there are differences in what we consider to be security issues, and we have to address those matters collectively. But we have to do it collectively, we have to start by listening to one another and not shouting at each other. So it's time for that to stop.
Sir Ronald, we're about to take a break. When we return, call for transparency from Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Are those calls justified? And what does this mean for regional unity? Stay with us. There's more from Sir Ronald after the break. And welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We continue our discussion with Sir Ronald Sanders. He's, of course, Ambassador of Antigua and Barbuda to the United States and Dean of Ambassadors of the Western Hemisphere countries, which include many CARICOM countries. He's also a career diplomat. Sir Ronald, thank you so much for, of course, staying with us. You, of course, suggested that Dr. Barnett's presence could deepen divisions within CARICOM. Has this already reached, in your opinion, a point where CARICOM cannot function cohesively under her leadership?
No, I do not think so at all. And, CARICOM is not as divided as people like to think it is. The truth of the matter is that in its years of existence, it's been through many different kinds of turmoil. I'll remind you that in the mid-1970s, Dr. Eric Williams, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, refused to attend any CARICOM heads of government meetings with the then Prime Minister of Guyana, Forbes Burnham, and the then Prime Minister of Jamaica, Michael Manley. He'd fallen out with them because they wanted to pursue relations with Comecon countries. Comecon is something now nobody remembers, but it was an invention by the Soviet Union to have socialist countries join together in some kind of economic grouping. Now, Dr. Williams was never for that. He believed in Caribbean integration. He thought that we as a people, one Caribbean people, could find our own destiny by ourselves, that we did not need to have adventurism into different different kinds of ideologies. So, for almost 10 years, CARICOM did not have a heads of government meeting. The CARICOM continued at ministerial levels, but not at the heads of government. Now, what did that do? It set back CARICOM and the integration movement considerably, because the decisions that only heads of government could have taken to move the integration movement ahead more quickly were not taken during that 10-year period. What happened instead is that national solutions were being found to urgent problems. After 10 years, when you come back, and things have not moved on, what in fact has happened is that while you have been standing still, the world has moved on. And so from 1982 until now, 1982 is when we had the first heads of government conference, shortly after Dr. Williams died in 1981, and then we revived the CARICOM energy, and we put behind it the kind of energy that we see that it has today. And Trinidad and Tobago leaders of all stripes have played a part in making sure that happened. A.N.R. Robinson, for instance, and also the former leader of Ms. Bessesa's political party. All of these people contributed. She herself, in her term as Prime Minister during the last time she was in the caucus, made a contribution to the onward movement of our region. So not let's write off CARICOM because of one incident, which seems at the moment to be insurmountable. We can surmount this because we have the capacity to do it. It may take time. It may take a little urging. It will cause us to have what it will demand of all of us is that we should have more dialogue with each other than we have had in the past, certainly in the recent past. And let us get down to the brass tacks of doing something about the region so that all of us can be safer as a result of it. We are living in a troubled world. Small states like ours cannot survive on their own. We need to be strengthened. We need to hold each other's hands, and we need to look carefully at the alliances which we must form in order to survive, because even as CARICOM alone cannot defend itself, which is why CARICOM has always been a part of what we call a zone of peace. But it's not CARICOM alone that has declared a zone of peace, and you must remember that. In 2014, it was all of Latin America and Caribbean and CARICOM that talked about wanting the Caribbean to be a zone of peace. That's an important principle, but it's not a principle that says we cannot look for our security through alliances with others. It does not in any way deny that from happening. And I think the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has been saying that you have more crime in the Caribbean than any other CARICOM country. She's also said that you're faced with a bigger problem of drug trafficking than any other country in the Caribbean. Those two things are probably true. I'm not saying they are, but she's saying they are. And I think they're probably true. And she has a right, therefore, to be concerned about them and to try to find ways in which she can address them. Indeed, one of the best ways in which she can address them is to advance the idea that CARICOM should be pursuing these things together.
Sir Ronald, I accept the fact that you're saying that these discussions, dialogue should take place behind closed doors. But the facts are that there are so many documents that are already in the public domain, most recently WhatsApp messages disinviting the designated representatives of the heads from that particular retreat. Don't these issues ought to be resolved? If Prime Minister Carla Barnett indicated from the offset, from her speech at the opening of the Heads of Government Conference, that she does not support Dr. Barnett, or there appeared to be some resistance, and the heads or the chairman knew that a vote was going to take place, why have in this program of work CARICOM heads of government only? Don't we need to resolve those issues?
Because the caucus is a caucus of heads of government only. Now, that's a different question as to whether it should have proceeded without all the heads of government present. But usually in these things, when heads of government cannot be present, and incidentally, there were two other heads of government not present at that meeting. The Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda was not there, and the Prime Minister of the Bahamas was not there. And why were they not there? Because they're both facing elections. Antigua and Barbuda has elections on the 30th of April, and the Bahamas has elections sometime in early May. So they were not there for good reason. Neither, incidentally, were their foreign ministers for the same reason. Their foreign ministers are candidates in the election, and they're fighting to hold on to their seats. So they had perfectly legitimate reasons for not being there. If you come back to the question, therefore, of whether this decision should have been taken without all heads of government present, my view is that we should have waited until they all were there. There was no rush. Dr. Barnett's term goes until August. We've got 4 more months to go. It's not something that needed to be rushed through. Why there was an urgency about it, I have no idea. But the truth is that it can't meet big decisions of CARICOM have always been made unanimously by heads of government. And the best decisions to make are those that are unanimously backed because everybody is behind it. So should there have been time to allow all heads of government to be present? Yes, that's an administrative and a judgment by the chairman. He made a judgment that he could go ahead with this and then talk to the other heads of government afterwards, which he did in the case of Antigua and Barbuda, and which he did in the case of the Bahamas, and I understand that he tried to do in the case of Trinidad and Tobago. I think where we had a difficulty is that he didn't reach the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and they did not have that conversation. But I'm sure that had that connection been made, and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago had said to the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, look, I am absolutely not going to go ahead with this, I oppose it, he would have had to take that fully on board before the announcement was made. But I would also remind you that Prime Minister Drew is new to this business, and we must not expect him to have the same kind of experience and knowledge that we may attribute to other heads of government who've been here before and who have the experience and knowledge to know better.
Should there have been more transparency instead of cloaking the re-election of Dr. Barnett under the term financing and governance of the community?
Well, it is a governance matter, so it wasn't cloaked. And I think everybody who had that timetable knew what governance meant. They didn't put it into the timetable for a very simple reason. You have that timetable in your hand. Journalists would have had it to their hand before the meeting began. So it would have signaled that the caucus was dealing with the selection of the Secretary General. And incidentally, the selection of the Secretary General of the Commonwealth is also made in caucus by heads of government. So that's nothing new.
I will ask for some clarity, Sir Ronald, because Article 24 of the revised treaty said that the Secretary General shall be appointed by the conference. Now, according to Article 11, the conference is the heads or any person designated by a head. That would mean if we had a representative there in the name of our Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Sean Sobers, he ought to have been allowed to vote in that conference.
But he wasn't at the conference.
He wasn't at the retreat because he was disinvited.
But he was not. But it was at the retreat that the caucus was scheduled. Everybody knew that. So I'm not sure what the point you're making is here. If you're trying to go back to the legality of this and to rake over the coals of it,
it seems deliberate, Sir Ronald.
No, I know you can say that as much as you like, Miss Ruth Lorraine. I'm not questioning your right to say it. All that I'm saying is that it's behind us now. We've gone past that stage. What we must look for now is not raking over coals, trying to assign blame and getting, in the words of the Caribbean, vexed with each other. What we have to do is to look to resolve this issue in the interests of the people of the Caribbean.
So your proposal in that case is that Dr. Barnett ought to resign. She ought to step down.
No, what I'm saying, and let me be clear, is Dr. Barnett, if I were she, I'm not telling her what she should do. I'm saying what I would do if I were in her shoes. If I were the Secretary General of CARICOM, and I recognized that I did not have the support of one of the major founding members of the country and its representative, and that I would never be able to have the trust and confidence of that person and to be able to share with them my own views and listen to theirs about the development of the region, then I would feel myself so encumbered as not to be able to carry out my function. And therefore, I would be doing the CARICOM Secretariat and the people of the Caribbean a disservice. On that basis, I would withdraw my name from consideration.
Bottom line, though, if Dr. Barnett does not resign, what happens next? Is CARICOM heading towards a deeper fracture or even irrelevance?
I am not going to speculate on that because I think Dr. Barnett is a Caribbean integrationist, just as I am, and I think she will always put the region before the individual, including herself.
As an advocate for regional unity, as you have been for decades, and also for CARICOM, what is most dangerous at this time? What do we stand to lose as a region?
Well, what was everything, and that is the truth of it. We are living in a troubled time in the world. There are conflicts happening all over the world which are impacting us now. To be concerned about this political point when we are facing increases in the cost of living, shortages of all sorts of commodities, including vital fertilizer for agriculture, when we are facing a situation in which oil prices are skyrocketing and the cost of living is going up along with it, we should be concerned about how we alleviate that situation and how we as a region can try as best we can to build the resilience to deal with it and make the best contribution we can to the belligerents in these wars to come to the table of discussion and seek peace, because peace and prosperity is what makes the Caribbean, which allows the Caribbean to develop. We cannot develop in times of conflict anywhere in the world. And we know that today better than at any other time in our history.
As we close, one final question to you. Will you be willing to mediate, if necessary, between heads or between parties?
It's not for me to mediate. I think that the heads of government themselves will reach the point where they will talk with each other. And I hope that the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister will be magnanimous herself in saying, I will sit with my colleagues and talk, because that's what's required. And less of the tweets, less of the WhatsApp messages, less of the social media stuff, and get down to the real business of governing the country. Let's all be adults. Let's all be mature. Let's recognize that what is at stake is the future of the people of the Caribbean.
What is at stake is the future of the people of the Caribbean. And Ambassador of Antigua and Barbuda to the United States, and of course, Dean of Ambassadors of the Western Hemisphere countries. Of course, you're also a career diplomat, Sir Ronald Sanders. Let me thank you so much for joining us tonight and, of course, sharing your expertise with us. Tonight's conversation, of course, reminds us of what is unfolding in CARICOM, goes beyond personalities. It speaks to trust, process, and the kind of regional unity Caribbean people expect and deserve. Thank you so very much again, Sir Ronald, for your candid views. The questions surrounding the reappointment of Dr. Carla Barnett have exposed deeper concerns, but also an opportunity for reflection, for accountability, and ultimately for strengthening the institutions meant to serve us all. Whether this moment leads to greater division or meaningful reform will depend on the choices made by regional leaders in the days ahead. Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Headlines. I'm Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan. Good night from me, but there's more news up next.